Good morning, everybody. It is October 30th, 2023. I've been wanting to make this video since basically before I even had a YouTube channel. Back in January 2023, almost 2 years ago, Leslie and I went on a week-long road trip to the eastern Sierras of California, and it was very cold. So to prepare for that, we bought this Chinese diesel heater from Amazon and a Jackery 240 to power it, and it ended up working out pretty well. We have not used this heater now since then, so almost 2 years since we've used it. This past weekend, though, we went out camping and it was going to be cold, so we brought the heater with us. I'm making this video about the diesel heater. I'm going to try to put in everything that I was looking for back when I was doing my initial research, but for now, I'm going to take you back in time to this past weekend to when I was using the heater. Side note, while we were there, I was trying out a new lapel microphone and it had some issues, so I'm going to be doing some voiceover and trying to fix the audio that wasn't working while I was there. This is one of the clips where the audio did not work, but basically I was just saying that since it had been so long since we had used the heater, before recording, I turned it on just to make sure I remembered what I was doing. So we had got it on and working just before I started recording, and then I was going to come back to the camera in a couple hours when we were actually going to use it. See my breath, it's pretty cold. As promised, I am back a few hours later. It's pretty dark out right now. It's only 6:45, and we're just about out of firewood, and it's getting pretty cold. I've got a meat thermometer. That was the only way to tell the temperature that I had, was a meat thermometer. So we can track how the heater is working. So right now it's 31.8 degrees. 31.8, in case you don't believe me. Okay, well, it says 32 now. But anyways, we're probably going to head up in the tent in about 10 minutes, maybe 15. The heater takes about 10 minutes to heat up, so I wanted you with me while we turn it on. So I'm going to flip the camera around again. All right, so we've got the Anker Solix at 93%. I'm going to tap this here, and that is going to turn on the DC power. But I haven't turned on the diesel heater yet. So you can see that gave it, block my headlamp. You can see the screen better now. By turning on the Anker and giving the diesel heater power, that turned on the screen, but the diesel heater itself is not on. So let's flip this back around. So I'm going to use the remote and press the on button. All right, so this thing's just getting started. Over here, the Anker was at 93%. Just turning it on, we're pulling 40 watts. I think that will get up to about 120 as it powers up. This saying that we only have 10 hours remaining is likely not true. Once the heater gets to its initial temperature, it kind of rotates on and off to maintain that temperature. So I'm not worried about what the power station says my time left is right now. But yeah, it takes about 10 minutes, so we're gonna let that heat up. I'm gonna assume the temperature in the tent is about the same as it is out here to start. So we'll say we're at about 32 degrees, and then I guess I'll see you in about 10 minutes when we're up in the tent. It's been on, the heater's been on for about 15 minutes. It's 7 o'clock. Leslie just went up, so I'm gonna head up right now. And before I do, I'll just show you the tubing. So I put, we got that on there, and then we've just got it in over there. Hi. Just showing you the tubing from the inside, or the vent from the inside. Let's see, that lighting's pretty good. Yeah, so we've got, obviously this is where the hot air is coming in. So anyways, it is toasty in here. It feels fantastic. I've got our meat thermometer in here, and it is about 76 degrees, 77, 78. Well, it's just going up. 80 degrees. I'll leave that on for a minute. It is toasty. It is comfortable in here. It feels great. We've got a carbon monoxide detector just in case, and then we are keeping some ventilation. So we've got some air coming in through here, that one over there behind me, and then the door here, I'm leaving this side open just so we can get some ventilation as well. Let's see, temperature, I guess it changes depending on where I'm holding the thermometer. Obviously, if I get a little closer to the vent, it'll get hotter. But yeah, I'd say it's about 75 in here. Feels wonderful. We're gonna hang out in here for a little bit, and then we'll check in with you a little bit later before bedtime. All right, it's now just before 9 o'clock. So this heater has been on for 2 hours and 15 minutes, I guess. Let's have a look at what the power is at before bedtime. Pretty good with that Anker Solix power station. I am not going to worry about the power running out tonight. I think the lowest the fuel ever got to when we used it a couple of years ago was about half. But I would worry more about the fuel running out than the power. But we'll see in the morning what the power's at, what the fuel is at. Before we head to bed, I'm just going to show you the remote. So let me flip this camera around. So the remote, super simple. Off button, on button. Temperature up, temperature down. So we got it at 17 Celsius, which I believe is about 62 Fahrenheit, but it's a little warmer in here. It's pretty comfortable, but obviously if we need to adjust that, we can with the remote from the tent. So yeah, I think we're gonna head to bed. I'm gonna put that remote right up here. The only other thing I can think of for now, and I had forgot that it does this, but when it reaches the desired temperature, I believe the unit kind of like stops bringing the heat in for a little bit. And I do remember a couple years ago when we were using this heater that during that cycle, it does get a little bit cold in here. But then obviously it turns back on again. But it only did that once so far in the last couple hours. So anyways, we're gonna head to bed. I'm gonna be sleeping in a t-shirt because it's so warm in here. So unless there's anything that goes wrong with it in the middle of the night, I'll see you in the morning.
Good morning, everybody. It's now 7:45 on Sunday, and we turned off the heater about 20 minutes ago. Let me show you how much fuel is left and how much battery is left. So that used a lot of fuel. We had it on for 12 hours and 45 minutes. So that's the longest I think we ever had it running. Battery, not a concern at all. Had it on that long and we got, 60% left. So that, I'll talk about it in a little bit, but that was a concern in the past with other batteries we used. But yeah, we would have run out of fuel before the battery went out. But anyways, I will see you back in my office to continue this video with some more about the heater and maybe some things I might have forgot.
All right, so there it was being used this past weekend. I actually ended up waking up 3 times during the night because I was too hot. I ended up, in the morning, I realized I ended up turning down the temperature to 11. So that's why it was a little cooler in there in the morning. It was kind of like the low 60s, which was perfect, I think. I want to address some of the initial steps that I took before we ever used it back a couple of years ago. And then there will be some other things that I thought of that I'm going to address after that. One of the most difficult steps for me was figuring out how I was going to power it. After doing some research, I figured out that I can use one of those power stations. So I ended up buying the Jackery 240, but the problem there was the heater doesn't come with any wiring or anything like that. It doesn't just come with wires for something that will stick into a DC socket. So I had to figure out what was I going to do there. So I ended up finding this one here. So this has these 2 rings and then this cable that connects to a DC, but that wasn't enough to power the heater itself. So what I ended up doing was cutting the wire here at this end, and then I also bought this, and then I had to cut this where those metal parts are, and then I had to connect the 2 wires together, and then this one went into the power station, and that ended up working to power it. Now, being 2 years later, if you ask me why did I have to cut it, I don't remember. Maybe it wasn't long enough, but it works. That's what I ended up having to do. Can't remember exactly why that was what I had to do. So going back to a couple of years ago, a little bit more detail about the Jackery. So the temperature outside is going to make a huge difference. I don't remember what the warmest we used the heater was, but the coldest we used it was under 10 degrees, somewhere between 5 and 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And that next morning, after about 8 hours, I went to check the Jackery and it was at 4%, and it had been at 100. This is the Jackery 240, so one of the lower powered ones. And that made me a little bit worried that the battery was almost running out after about 8 hours. There was another night though, must have been a little bit warmer, and I think the highest the Jackery battery ever was in the 30s, 30% remaining. So the Jackery 240 worked. This time we had the Anker Solix C1000. So that's a 1056 watt-hour power station versus a 240 watt-hour power station. If you're going to use one of these portable power stations to power your diesel heater, I would go at least 240 watt hours, but I would recommend going a little bit higher because you don't want to have to worry about it running out of power and then improperly shutting down the diesel heater by the power running out. Once we had the power figured out, the next order of business was to figure out the hose. That little black hose that this comes with is certainly not going to be sufficient for working in a rooftop tent. So what I ended up getting was this dryer vent. It is a 3-inch, 16-foot dryer vent hose. It's definitely able to handle the heat, and it has held up it held up during our uses a couple of years ago, and it held up during our use this time. The outside of it does not get so hot where it's going to burn the tent or anything like that. I would definitely recommend this. It was like 15 bucks. And it was plenty long, even when we needed the heater on the ground. And then when this heater arrived, it was pretty easy to put everything together with it. Obviously, it all comes together in this unit with the red outline. And then on the bottom is where the exhaust vent goes. You could see right here, obviously you saw in the video before, this is where the hot air goes. And then this is for the air intake, I believe. And it comes with all the clips and screws that you need. And bonus, the remote control, I did not change the battery. So that battery had been, and the remote, that had been sitting in our garage for almost 2 years and still worked when I gave it a try the other day. I've got just a few more things I want to address. Number one, if the heater shuts off unexpectedly, that's supposed to be bad for the machine. So for example, that's why having enough power in the power station is so important. When you turn it off in the remote, it needs to go through its shutting down cycle. I don't remember what would happen to it, but I know it can damage the machine and potentially it would not work anymore. So make sure you've got enough power and make sure you press the off button when you turn off your diesel heater. I kind of touched on this already, but number two is that the heat blowing in through the vent does cycle kind of on and off. So when it gets to the right temperature, it regulates and then it turns off. One, that will change the level of noise the heater is making, which does affect my sleep. Number two, when it is off, it does get noticeably colder. I can't tell you how long it stays on and how long it stays off, and it's probably not the same each time. But that is something to keep in mind when you're using it. Number three, I have noticed a smell, and I remembered the same smell 2 years ago when we used it. I don't know if the smell comes from the heater or if it has anything to do with the dryer vent that we got. It never set off our carbon monoxide detector. We've never noticed any ill effects from using it. I wouldn't even say it's a bad smell, but there is a little bit of a smell. So just another thing to keep in mind. We've used it several times. There is a little bit of a smell, and we are both still alive. Number four, it makes the air in the tent very dry. I was coughing a couple times throughout the night, and I noticed that the next day that I had a kind of a hoarse throat a little bit from the dry air from the heater. Right now, I can't think of anything else that I would need to mention. I hope you found this video helpful if you are looking into getting a diesel heater for your rooftop tent. I will link everything in the description, the heater, the dryer vent, the wiring that we used, the power stations, including the Jackery and the Anchor Solix. If you do have any questions, anything you can think of that I missed, please leave a comment below. I will do my best to answer it if I can. Thank you for watching. It would mean a lot to me if this video was helpful to you, if you would like and subscribe to my channel. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. See you next time.